All right, hi there Year 10. Today I'm going to look at historical developments. Okay, this is lecture number 5, video number 5 in our series of videos for the timber industry. And when I'm thinking about historical developments, what I'm talking about is the way that tools, machines, and processes have changed over time. So by the end of today's lesson, you're going to know some of the tools, machines, and processes that have changed over time, some of the tools around technical drawing, prototyping and modeling, cutting or shaping. And you're going to know the pros and cons of these developments for the timber industry, specifically for the furniture making industry. I hope that by the end of this video, you understand how these tools have developed, but not only how they've developed, but how their development has made the timber industry safer and faster and more efficient and more productive when we work in the industry. And you are going to write an extended response, and the question is going to be shared with you on Google Classroom. So we get started. I'll summarize again. Historical developments, whenever you hear me say that, all I'm talking about is how have things been improved and developed throughout history. So if I give you a really simple example here, we've spoken a lot about plantation forests and cutting down trees to make timber. Originally, when they wanted to cut a tree down, they had to use a handsaw. 1 or 2 people would go and they would cut a tree down using a handsaw. And that's what we call a hand process. Eventually, over time, there was the development of machines, and the machine that is specifically used here is a chainsaw. Chainsaws are where we use a machine to help us do the work. We call this mechanization. Mechanization is where the machine helps the human to get the work done. The human is still in charge, the person holding the machine is still in charge, but the machine does a lot of the work for them. But the human controls the machine. If we think about how that's developed, we then have tractors. And tractors with claws, and those claws have chainsaws. Well, these chainsaw tractor processes are even more advancements, even more developments of mechanizations where machines are being used in really advanced ways to help humans get the work done. The next one across I've got here is a Waratah machine. You might have heard me speak about that in the plantation video. A Waratah machine is a tractor that cuts trees down. It measures the tree trunk while it's cutting it down. It cuts it into individual lengths. It holds it. It measures the moisture content. It stores all of that information in a computer system and automatically sends it off to people. This is where we're starting to move away from mechanization. Okay, remember, mechanization is where the machine helps the human. And we're now starting to get into this almost automation process where the machine is almost able to do it on their own. Because if you think with the Waratah machines and the video that we watched in that plantation lecture, the Waratah machine, the human is only there to show it where the tree is. It does everything else on its own. It cuts the tree down, it holds it, it turns it around, it takes the bark off, it measures it into small pieces and chops it into small lengths. It takes measurements of the tree and stores that in the computer automatically and sends it over to the supervisor. So there's a lot of automatic things that are happening there, and that's what we call automation. So if we think about there being 3 main steps in historical developments, our first step is hand processes, where the human does it by hand. The second is machine or mechanization, where the human does it with the use of a machine. And the third is automation, where the machine does it without really needing the human at all. Now, as technology has developed over time, so too has the way that we do work in the TP&F. Now, TP&F, timber products and furniture industry. Okay, that's the industry that we work in when we are furniture makers. Now, the developments that happen are usually done because of a few things. Either we're trying to reduce the amount of money it takes to produce an item, okay? E.g. we want to increase the amount of money our company makes, so we design a product that makes it better. Or we don't want our people to work as hard, so we design a machine to make it easier for them to do work. Or it's really dangerous, so we design a machine that is safer Or we don't want it to be as bad for the environment, so we design a machine that makes it more sustainable. They're the four main reasons we develop technology in the timber industry, or in any industry really. Now, if I think about some of the different processes that we go through when we're creating products, we can break them down into these hand processes, machine processes, and automated processes. Sometimes we don't yet have automated processes. Sometimes that's still not developed. Sometimes we've been using automated processes for years. Now, if we think about the very first timber chair that was designed back by Joseph, and when he was a carpenter and he was teaching his trade to Jesus, think about these first timber products that were ever made in the advent of time. Someone had to design them and someone had to make them. If we think about now how chairs are made faster and cheaper than ever before. And so when we talk about the historical development, we talk about the old hand process where you think of a carpenter or a furniture maker sitting there with a mallet and a chisel carving out their shapes. It's very slow, it's very expensive to pay for the labor. If they make a mistake, they have to throw the project out and start again. And they're using hand saws, hand chisel, all this handheld equipment that is operated by hand. When we move across as time goes on, so maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years later, and we start to have machines being developed when electricity came out and when we had engines and motors, things became faster, and when things become faster, they become cheaper to make. The other benefit of things being using machines is the quality started to increase because we don't have all those errors that humans make because machines are just that little bit better. And so instead of hand saws, we're now talking power saws, okay? Saws that we plug into the power point and we operate them using electricity or using batteries. Moving across in time again, we then have automated processes. Now, automated processes in the timber industry are probably only 15 or so years old. We haven't had them for a long time. It seems a long time for you because that's probably your whole life. But for me, I'm only 30, some of these automated processes when I was in year 9 did not exist. When I was at university, some of these automated processes, some companies were only just getting them for the first time. They're very expensive. The machines are really expensive when you're thinking automated processes. But the benefit is, if the machine does the work for you, you don't need to pay people to do it, so it becomes cheaper. The other benefit of using a machine is perfect quality every time. They don't make mistakes. They also never call in sick. Right? Machines work every day of the year, and machines are not dangerous to themselves. Machines are dangerous to humans, but a machine doesn't injure a machine. So we have a whole heap of benefits as to why we would use automated processes. And what I'm talking about here are CNC machines. I'll talk more about that in the next couple of slides. Now, it might seem like every single development is always really good for the timber industry. We're talking about it's cheaper to make products, perfect quality, they never call in sick, there's no dangers. But there also are some negative impacts of having new machines come in and new processes come in. And one of the things you've got to think of is, well, if the machine does the job, then there's no job for me to do anymore. So there are some sad parts in the development of technologies, and that is that people start to lose their jobs. And if they want to keep a job, they have to retrain to use this new technology. Now, the cutting process, okay, how timber is cut, is one of the really simple examples. We used to use hand saws. They're really slow, low precision, they're user-driven. That's what you use at the moment. That's what you're using right now. Then when you get to year 11 and year 12, you start to be able to use some of the handheld power saws, like the circular saw and the drop saw, for example. They're faster, they're a little bit more precise. It's an example of mechanization. The human's still in charge of the machine, but the machine does the work. And then we develop further again into these advanced developments where we're talking CNC. Now, CNC stands for computer numerically controlled. You don't need to remember that off the top of your head in year 9 or year 10. When you get to year 11 and year 12, yes, you will. But for now, CNC. It effectively means that the computer controls the machine. So if you design something in CAD, you can just click a few buttons and send it over to the machine. So basically send an email of the file to the CNC machine, and the machine will cut it for you exactly the way that you have designed it. Very, very precise, the most precise form of manufacturing. Very, very fast, with very little danger or risk involved at all, and can be completely automatic. Now I've got an example here of a CNC router, or 3 examples of a CNC router and the sorts of things that a CNC router can do. I'm going to flick through this video very quickly, but I do expect you to watch it. I've shared it with you on Google Classroom. Effectively, you put a sheet of material down on the board, and the CNC router is a router. It's got its tiny spinning head, and it moves around the piece of timber on its own using a robotic arm. Okay? And it is able to produce a whole heap of different sorts of designs, including cutting the timber automatically for you, including engraving timber, including etching timber. And see how clean it is as well, because these CNC machines have their dust extraction built into them so that there's actually no mess in the workshop at all, and our workshops become much cleaner. And when workshops are cleaner, they are also much safer. So that's the end of the video that I'm going to show you here. But I do want you to watch that whole video. It goes for about 4 minutes and it's linked into our Google Classroom. Technical drawings, or the way that we do our drawings for our project, has also changed over time. Now, when I was at school, believe me, it wasn't that long ago, all of the drawings that I did for my major project were done by hand, because the only people that had CAD software, like SketchUp, the only people that had SketchUp were architects. Students never used to have CAD software. So it was a really slow process. It's quite expensive if you're paying someone to do your drawings for you. And if you make a mistake, you have to throw your drawing out. So if any of you have done technical drawing or graphics at school, you'll know that when you make a mistake, you can rub it out as much as you like, but it looks really messy. So you usually throw your page away and start again. Then we got 2D CAD. And 2D CAD was where we had that ability to use our computer to do our drawings. And when you had a mistake, you could just undo it. You could just delete it. And if you wanted to make a change to your drawing, you just open it up and make a change. Not really much cost at all. Very fast. And an example of that is using SketchUp. Then it developed even further and became 3D. Now, you're only used to 3D. You've only ever experienced 3D while you've been at Clancy, because SketchUp is 3D software as well. Not only can we design our projects, but we can also visualize it in 3D. And we can put little textures on to see what it will look like if it was made from timber, if it was painted black, if it was painted yellow, etc. We can change the colors, the materials, the textures, and render a whole heap of different designs. It's really fantastic because you can share these designs with the client, show them what the product's going to look like before it actually finishes. The way that we plan our products quite often includes prototyping or creating a model, a small version of it before we make it. They're really helpful for the client to understand the project and to better understand the processes. Now, originally, we used to have to create a model using balsa wood. It's really slow. It's not that the materials are expensive, but the labor is expensive because of how long it takes to do. If you make a mistake, you sort of have to do it again. We then got SketchUp, and SketchUp again enabled us to do modeling on the computer, and we could show those 3D models to our clients. But the next development that came after that was 3D printing. Not only could we show them a model on a computer, a 3D model on a computer, but we could also click a button and print it on the 3D printer so they could hold a finished version of the product in their hand to see exactly what it would look like. Fast, very cheap. Even the materials that we use has changed a lot over time. We used to only use old growth timber, and then we realized how bad it was for the environment and how long it takes trees to grow. And so lots of governments around the world said, no more cutting down old growth timbers. If you want to use wood for furniture making, you have to do plantations. So they started plantation timbers, they started growing plantations much cheaper because they were planned. They're sustainable because we keep regrowing them every 30 years. We plant more trees to replace them. And some of the examples there are radiator pine, like we use in the workshop, and Tasmanian oak. Okay, we use Tasmanian oak in the workshop as well, mostly for year 11 and year 12. But these are both examples of the plantation timbers that we could use. Both of these plantation timbers are grown in Australia. Tasmanian oak is a hardwood, radiator pine is a softwood. Moving on again, we then had the development of manufactured boards. Okay, now you remember from our last lesson that we did, manufactured boards are large sheets of material that have been engineered to improve their qualities, to improve their strength, to remove the defects that we have in timber. And some of the examples of manufactured board include what's called modwood. Okay? Modwood is a timber product that's made of little bits of timber and little bits of plastic. They use it a lot in decks. Particle board or chipboard, plywood, MDF, hardboard, these are all examples of manufactured board. They're cheaper and stronger. It's a development that has happened to improve things in the timber industry. So again, that's the end of today's video. You've got a little bit of work that we've set for you on Google Classroom, an extended response where we want you to think about how things have changed over time and how it makes it better for the timber industry, safer for the timber industry. So good luck with that. If you need any more help, just go back to our previous videos. Thank you.